I'm Amy Young, and I'm going to talk to you about dysgraphia. Dysgraphia isn't just bad handwriting. The word dysgraphia is Greek in origin. It comes from dys, meaning impaired, graph, meaning to produce letter forms by hand, and ia, meaning to have a condition. It is defined as having an impairment in the ability to write. The impairment of written language occurs despite normal to above normal IQ and is considered a learning disability. It is estimated that 10 to 30% of school-age children struggle with mastering handwriting. People with dysgraphia have difficulties with written expression, which requires complex motor and informational processing skills. People with dysgraphia frequently have difficulties in handwriting, spelling, organizing letters or numbers or words on a line and page, productivity, writing mechanics, organization, and composition. Dysgraphia can occur with or without other learning disabilities. Writing requires cooperation from several parts of the brain because of its complexity, and therefore dysgraphia frequently includes combinations of difficulties. When identifying someone with dysgraphia, some characteristics that tend to draw red flags are difficulty writing or drawing, illegible handwriting, poor letter formation, which means letters that are too large, too small, or inconsistently sized, poor pencil grip, irregular spacing, incorrect use of capital and lowercase letters, such focused concentration that the student forgets what they want to write about, poor spelling, lack of organization or sequencing, incorrect grammar and word usage, very slow writing, they're often better at telling stories than writing them down, and the limited expression of ideas. On this slide, you will see writing samples from second grade students. The writing sample on the left, highlighted in blue, is from a second grade student without disability. The writing sample on the right is from a student with dysgraphia, and as you can see, the writing sample illustrates difficulty with letter sizing and keeping print between the lines. People with dysgraphia tend to express difficulties in three areas: visual spatial processing, fine motor skills, and language processing. These may occur together or independently. With visual spatial processing, errors are caused by the difficulty interpreting what the eyes are seeing. These are demonstrated through shape confusion, letter or number mix-ups, as well as lack of proper spacing and trouble organizing. Fine motor lags are demonstrated in poor grip and the fatigue from improper writing position, either the body or the hand. These are not the result of a coordination disorder or primary developmental disorder, but more likely caused by trouble planning sequential finger movements. Typically, children with motor dysgraphia will also have other fine motor difficulties, like cutting or shoe tying. Students with dysgraphia also may have language processing difficulties, such as not knowing where to begin or how to self-check. They may appear disorganized and even unable to read back their own writing. There seems to be a missing piece between memory, particularly the orthographic loop, and what muscle movements need to be made in order to write letters and words automatically. In the writing sample above to the right, you can see that it is illegible and uses both capital and lowercase letters. Sometimes learning struggles are normal. If the child in question struggles persistently for at least 6 months, you should seek help from the child's teacher or physician. For an official diagnosis, a physician or a clinical psychologist should be consulted, though an occupational therapist can determine if motor dysgraphia is present. Best practice would be to have a team assess the child. While currently no specific test for diagnosing dysgraphia exists, the following tests could be utilized by the school psychologist or another specialist in order to pinpoint and classify the type of disorder prevalent. The Processing Speed Index scores, Developmental Test of Visual Motor Integration, the Bender-Gestalt, Jordan Left-Right Reversal Test, and the Trails Test. Other writing, spelling, and grammar assessments are also available, such as the Tests of Adult Basic Education, Wide Range Achievement Test Revised, the Test of Written Spelling, or the Test of Written Language Second Edition. After the child is diagnosed, they may be eligible to receive services or accommodations once an individualized education plan is established. If the child does not meet the requirements for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, which dysgraphia by itself does not, and thereby does not qualify for an IEP, they may meet the criteria for a 504 plan. With proper identification and support, children with dysgraphia can be successful in and out of school. While dysgraphia is a lifelong disability, motor dysgraphia can be improved. To improve motor dysgraphia, the first step would be to check on the pencil grip. The goal is to achieve the tripod grasp and may require the use of a gripper, which will aid in motor sequencing. By keeping the grip from constantly changing due to discomfort, it encourages the same sequence for writing letters and helps them to become automatic and makes writing much easier. The next step is to work on hand strengthening. The top 5 activities recommended for hand strengthening include manipulating Play-Doh, cutting with scissors, digging, opening and closing clothespins, and squeezing the triggers on spray bottles. Step 3 would be overlearning the alphabet, which is the repetition or practice beyond what is normally required for retention. With these 3 steps completed, and when motor dysgraphia is improved, focus can shift to the spatial and processing issues involved with dysgraphia. For most students, after initially acquiring the skills for letter formation, it becomes automatic. But for kids with dysgraphia, letter formation is still a cognitive task, and this distracts from the skills that should be coming next, like spelling, grammar, sentence structure, and so on. When kids with dysgraphia put so much cognitive energy into writing, they often have trouble processing content, especially when copying or focusing on neatness. Because spatial and processing dysgraphia will never fully resolve, it is important to think about and create modifications and accommodations to help these children be successful. Some examples of structured practice or reteaching techniques might include multisensory techniques for articulating the motor sequence of the form of letters, such as making the letters in the air, multisensory writing techniques for print and cursive, so writing in different mediums like sand or shaving cream, substantial modeling and organization of each step of the writing process in order to help the student organize and communicate successfully, using something like the power model, plan the paper, organize thoughts and ideas, write a draft, edit the work, revise, and produce a final draft, or simply planning, drafting, revising, and editing. In addition, practice writing letters and numbers both with big arm movements as well as small hand and finger movements would be helpful. The use of alternative writing tools such as fat markers or weighted pens. Using specialty lined papers that have raised lines, different line widths, bolded lines, or graph paper. Utilizing programs that have text to speech as well as speech to text in order for students to do their own typing and editing, and even occupational therapy sessions. When making adjustments for students with dysgraphia, it is helpful to keep in mind the pace of completing work, the amount of work to be completed, the difficulty of the writing, any necessary production tools, and the format of the writing to be used. Accommodations could be in providing alternatives to the writing, or changing the assignment or expectations without significantly changing the process or the product. When adjusting the amount of work, it is better to stress quality over quantity. For example, a reduction in the length or number of elements on the assignment or test could be appropriate. The teacher could let the student shortcut papers by having them record their name and date in advance. You could adjust the amount of work by providing partially completed notes, leaving the important information to be filled in by the student. You could allow students to have a scribe or secretary in order to write out their dictation verbatim and then have the dysgraphic student make the edits. You could have students come up with their own texting abbreviations for writing, which could be kept in a notebook and used for some writing assignments or as shortcut words, and provide worksheets with some problems already in place. When assigning long-term assignments, the teacher could provide the student with increased structure and intermittent deadlines throughout, keeping in close communication with the student and even the parents or legal guardians in order to ensure timely progress. Teachers could develop cooperating learning groups for projects where students can share and take different roles or project aspects. Another option is simply offering students alternative projects to written reports, with clear rubrics and similar aspects to the original written assignment, or even let the student propose their own project. Students with dysgraphia could keep a writing binder with templates and laminated forms to aid their writing. The students could be allowed to use the spell checker to edit work or have an assigned student to help with spell checking. You could offer students spelling-free assignments when the teacher would not check the spelling on draft work or daily work. Encourage the student to use cursive or print, whichever is most readable. And if the student doesn't know cursive, incorporate it into the schedule. Use special paper and writing utensils in a variety of colors, different grips, types, pens, markers, whatever. You could allow the student to use word processors and keyboards, often available with special features. You can remove neatness or spelling criteria. The most beneficial thing, though, that an educator can offer to any student with a disability is more time. So allowing extra time for note-taking or tests would be significant. Give students assignments and projects ahead of time. Schedule in time for catch-up during the day, and add in keyboarding practice if the student needs it. So where can you go for support and resources? First, start with your school, your teacher, or even your physician. But then, look to the internet. There are many great programming options out there. Support groups can be easily found for students, like Eye to Eye. They can be found for parents and families, such as the Center for Parent Information and Resources. And even in that search for investigating the perfect technology to help your student, you can go to the Family Center on Technology and Disability. That completes our slideshow presentation, and I hope that you were able to learn a lot about dysgraphia, what it means for a student that has it, what kind of accommodations or modifications, how do you become diagnosed and get help, where can you go as a parent or a sibling or a teacher looking for resources to help your students. And then on my last slide here, you will see that I have posted my references, including our textbook, a book called Dysgraphia, Your Essentials Guide, some academic journal references, but a lot of the information that I found was off the internet from the National Center for Learning Disabilities. And all of the pictures or images came from clip art or from Google image search off Dysgraphia.